If you want some FIFA 23 coins, please check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use code REMA you can get yourself a 5% discount. So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, we've got some custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-2-1 formation. This is a formation which has really good movement, really good attacking AI, and really allows you to create a lot of chances, which is why I like the formation. Just before we get into today's video, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop this video a thumbs up, as that does really help with the YouTube search algorithm. Also subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, let's get right into today's video. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics, for the defensive style I like to use balance. This is because it gives you the greatest control in your defense and it allows you to press when you want to press and then drop off when you need to. So it does give you great control and it does give you balance, as the name does suggest. If you feel more comfortable using pressure tactics, you're more than welcome to go ahead and use them, but I do suggest getting used to balance if you can, as it does make you a better player overall. Now moving on to the defensive width guys, I have this on 42. The reason being is people primarily like to play narrow in FIFA 23, so it's important that we cover those central areas. By having it on 42 though, if you look at the diagram in the bottom right, you can still see we have that natural bit of width, so if somebody does try and go down the wing, we are also able to cover those areas. So we primarily defend in a compact way, but we're also able to cover the wings when we need to. Now moving on to depth guys, I have this on 65. This allows us to win the ball higher up the pitch and stops us getting pinned back in our own box so often. It also allows us to win the ball higher up so we can quickly counter attack our opponent and catch them by surprise. The reason I don't go any higher is because I feel like the through balls will be a little bit unbearable with my team, so I don't want to go any higher than like 65, otherwise I feel like the defensive line is too high. That being said though, if you guys feel more comfortable having your depth on like 72 for the automatic offside trap, then go right ahead. Similarly, if you want to lower it below 65, that also works just fine. Now moving on to build-up play guys, I like to use this on balance. The reason for this is it just gives you the greatest control when you are building up the play. Sometimes when you're using fast build-up in this formation, your team and your players move out of shape too often and things just happen a bit too quickly for your own good, especially when that gameplay is a little bit heavy. So balanced is quite often the better choice because it just gives you greater control when you're attacking, which is why we do use that. Now for chance creation guys, oops, I just moved that to slow build-up. For chance creation guys, we use direct passing. The reason for this is if you look at the diagram in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, you can see direct passing is the only setting which makes your attackers move in a way which will break through the defensive line. You can see they always make those movements. If you look at something like balance, this does not happen. They're very static and they don't bother the defenders, so it's very important that you guys do use direct passing, otherwise you will struggle quite a lot. Now moving on to the attacking width guys, because this is a narrow formation, we don't want the width to be super high, but at the same time I don't want my width to be like crazy low either, as it can be difficult to actually get anything going in this formation. So I like to have my width on 45 so my attackers are nice and spread out, but again they still keep that narrow shape, if you get what I'm saying. So 45, I've just found a greater balance with this formation. I don't suggest going much higher with the width, otherwise it just becomes too wide to the point where it's like a 4-3-3, and we don't really want that. So I just have this on 45, you know, on average, so it still feels like the 4-3-2-1, if you get what I'm saying. But yeah, there's not really much behind why I use that width, it just feels good for me. Now moving on to players in box guys, I have this on 5. That's because it's bang in the middle and it means we get some players into the box to help us create chances, but at the same time we don't overcommit our whole team so we don't get counter-attacked as easily. Yeah, this one's just down to preference. If you want to up it or lower it is completely up to you. For corners and free kicks, I just have these both on 1. The reason for this is I barely actually cross the ball from set pieces anymore. I just play them short a lot of the time, so I don't really need players in the box. So I just have it on 1 so we've got players back, so if we lose the ball we don't get counter attacked. That being said, if you want to up this, that is completely fine and it's completely up to you. Now, moving on to the players you want to use, guys, in the striker position, because this is a one striker formation, I think it's important that you go for a more well-rounded striker. This is because you actually have to compensate for the fact that there is only one striker instead of two. In those two striker formations, you can go for a balance between the two strikers, but in a one striker formation, you kind of have to get that balance all in one player. So what I do is I just go for a well-rounded player in Robbie Keane, who's got the 5-star weak foot, the good shooting, the good dribbling, you know, just a bit of everything in that position. That being said, just use whatever you feel comfortable with. Now, moving on to the two centre forwards, you just need to use those two technical players. So I'm just using Di Maria and Chiesa because they've got really good dribbling, really good shooting. You know, they're able to do everything that you need to create, and obviously they can finish chances. I'd say it's important that these players are agile and quick above anything, and obviously they need to be able to pass. But yeah, you know the types of players you should be using in these positions. It's just like those technical players. Now, moving on to the midfield, guys. For the right centre mid, I like to use a box-to-box player. So I'm using Park Ji-sung. He's got very well-rounded stats. He's got a high work rate, which is super important because it means when we are attacking, we're going to get a very high contribution from him. And when we're defending, we also get a high contribution. So the high work rate is super important on a box-to-box player. If you need somebody cheap in this position that will still work fine, you can just use gold Renato Sanchez. Now, moving on to the middle centre mid, I actually use a defensive player. So I suggest you using a defensive player with really good defensive stats. I'm just using Patrick Vieira. This player is just going to stay back and make life difficult for your opponent when they try and attack you. It's just really to add defensive support. Now, in the left centre mid position, I actually suggest using an attacker. So you could use like Lionel Messi, you could use Neymar. This is because they're actually going to contribute to the attack, and it's going to make more sense when we look at the player instructions because this will actually defend in a 4-4-2. An added bonus you can get on the left centre mid is if they have a high work rate, so like Bernardo Silva or Phil Foden like I'm using, because it makes their transition much better and the formation becomes a lot more solid. Now, moving on to the fullbacks, I suggest going for a balance between the two. So I suggest having one more attacking fullback and one more defensive fullback. My attacking fullback is Hernandez, my defensive one's Walker. That being said, if you want to use like two attacking ones or two defensive ones, it's completely fine. I do suggest having a balance though, as you'll see why in the player instructions. As for the centre backs and goalkeeper, these just need to be as good as you can possibly get them. Okay guys, so for the player instructions on the striker, I suggest balance width and getting behind. The reason we have him on balance width is because sometimes you just need a bit more variety in this formation. Sometimes when you have them on stay central, you don't get enough movement and it's very predictable. So having your player on balance width just gives you a bit more creativity and it is really nice to work with. We have him on getting behind, so he's always making those runs and troubling the defence, because sometimes on mixed attack, they don't really offer much and it can be very difficult to actually score goals. So getting behind just ensures that this player is always making the correct runs. Now on the left forward, the left centre forward, I suggest getting behind. The exact same instructions as we have on the striker, because again we want him to make those runs so we do actually get a bit out of this player. Otherwise it's very static and not much happens. And again we have balance width because sometimes we want them to be a bit more narrow, other times we want them to drift off a bit wider. It just makes it a bit more creative and better to work with. On the right forward, we actually have comeback on defence. This is so this player will come back to defend as a right mid in the 4-4-2. So if you look at our team, the back line will be exactly the same when we're defending, and then Phil Foden will be the left mid, Patrick Vieira will be the middle centre mid, Park Ji-sung will be another middle centre mid, and then we've got Chiesa as a right mid. So we've got a 4-4-2 formation with Di Maria and Keane at top. So it does work very well to have this player on comeback on defence, guys. Now for the box-to-box player, I suggest cover centre and leave everything else alone. We have cover centre so he defends as one of the centre mids in the 4-4-2. Otherwise, if we have him on cover wing, it kind of messes it up a bit. So cover centre ensures that he will defend in the middle of the 4-4-2, which is nice. And we have balance attack because, like I said, this is a box-to-box player. Now for the middle centre mid, the more defensive one, we have stay back while attacking and cover centre. The reason for this is, the reason we have stay back while attacking is because, again, we don't need this player to attack. He's defensive, so we have him on stay back. And we also need him to defend as one of the centre mids in the 4-4-2, so we have him on cover centre centre to make sure that he is in the centre mid position. Now for the left centre mid, the one that I said to use an attacker, I have get forward, get into the box for cross, and cover wing. So we have get forward, so we make sure he is giving like really good attacking support because this is an attacking player. We have get into the box for cross, so he's always getting involved in the attack, and he is actually making those transitional runs. Doesn't mean we have to cross the ball to him, it just means he's actually getting into the box to get involved, because like I said, this is an attacking player. And then the most important thing is that we have him on cover wing, so he does actually defend as a left mid in the 4-4-2. Now moving on to the fullbacks, I have balanced attack and overlap on the left back. This is because it's my more attacking player, and we have overlap so we get extra width when we are attacking. If we just use this on mixed attack, sometimes our player will just come narrow and it doesn't really add any extra width. So by having it on overlap, it just adds width to a narrow formation, which is super nice because you can attack wide and you can also attack narrow. Now on my more defensive fullback, the right back, I have stay back while attacking and overlap. We have him on stay back, so we've always got at least 3 back when we are defending, and we have overlap on because if I trigger a run with L1 to make him run forward, it means he will always overlap to add width. He won't worry about coming narrow, which is super important, guys. As for the centre backs and goalkeeper, we just leave them alone. But yeah, they are my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-2-1. If you guys have enjoyed or found this useful, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.